honor, the blessing, the great pleasure of hosting what we call our member panels here. I remember going through my OXE as well, and back in the day it was in person. And it was just so much fun to hear specific examples of fellow exchangers sharing actual stories of how they've applied the approach in a variety of scenarios, a variety of environments. And I just remember my ability to really make it feel tangible walking away from the training, having those exact examples. I know Steve did a really fantastic job of showing you how we at Exchange have applied the approach, but I really find it so useful to see how other members have taken the information, digested it, and made it their own and their own agendas and experiences. And so I really hope, and I know it's called out, Stephanie McKay, you said earlier in one of your shares, you're sharing appreciation for having practical exercises. I hope that you'll find, and for all of us, that we'll find that these are actual examples that are practical and that you can be inspired by what you're going to be seeing, that you can also go out and apply it for yourself. So with that, I am a little housekeeping, workbook page 7. So although you're going to be hearing these stories, I always am going to encourage you to have a pen and be ready to jot down any insights or nuggets or aha moments that you might have as you're listening to the stories that are going to emerge in our time together today. And you're going to do so, if you'd like, on page 7 in your workbook. And I am going to be, through this experience, sharing some slides. You are already seeing a slide on the screen right here. We are going to share these in the end of day recap. Maybe you knew we were going to send you a recap. If you didn't, now you know. We're going to send you a recap with these slides. So if at any point you find yourself you're wanting to write everything down, take a deep breath. It's going to be in that end of day recap, and you can go back through it at that point in time. But now I get to bring up our 2 amazing panelists for today. I'm going to first introduce Poli Bellan Wilson. Poli is originally from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Poli, welcome. She has been an ESL instructor. ESL stands for English as a Second Language since 1996, and a Portuguese instructor since 2014. Poli brings a unique blend of linguistic expertise and a creative flair to her teaching and facilitation approach. And I can personally attest, because Poli, I got to meet you at our in-person community summit last year, that you have such contagious energy and such great passion. And as we can all see also from the slide, Poli came through Exchange at OXE, let's see here, back in June of 2023. So you just came through as well, and you've already dove in to our events. Welcome, Poli. So great to have you here with us.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, I'm going to bring up Denee Choice. Denee Choice is a medical doctor. She's a healthcare leadership consultant and an executive coach. Denee helps physicians and other healthcare leaders identify their innate leadership advantages and find their unique voice of influence, allowing them to lead with clarity and ease and amplify their impact in their organizations and beyond. Denee, you as well are brand new to Exchange, having come through OXE yourself just less than 6 months ago, and you're already creating incredible results with this approach. We're so grateful to have you, Denee.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to sharing.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with Poli, and then I'm going to turn to you, Denee, and I'm going to open with this question really as a way to help our members here get an idea of all the different areas that we can apply the Exchange approach. And so my question, starting with you, Poli, is where have you personally applied the Exchange approach? Perhaps it's specific clients, communities, or environments. And within those examples, is there a specific one that you can share that created a result or an outcome that you achieved using the approach that might have been surprising or revealing to you about what's possible?
As many people say, like, where have I not? Mainly nowadays, it's like, ooh, Exchange is a way of being. Really. But when I think of the ones I work with, the ones I serve, I have mainly used this with the folks at church and also with my students, my language students. And I remember the very first time I was experimenting, like a breakout room, a different way to make an intro to my class with the purpose question, why is it important that you're here, folks getting together? When they came back from that breakout room, it was just like, whoa, fire, fire. And people like were saying, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. They are here because they have somebody in the family. They are here because, so yes, that's a very interesting way, because sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I pay attention to first class. They are coming into the class they don't know what to expect. And after the connection with a purpose question, grounding, everybody's just like, it's awesome to be here. So yes, this is the main thing, the main like one takeaway. I love that one. Thank
I
you
love
for sharing that one.
Thanks, Polly. Yes, to your point, just the connection and the ease that we start to feel because many of us are nervous when we're coming into a space, especially if we don't know each other. It's, there's a lot of anxiety and nerves that are running, and our ability to connect, to sometimes slow down and just be with each other and find the commonalities in what's shared. I love that visual where you could just see their smiles, their big smiles, right? Around what's possible.
Exactly.
Thanks so much,
And
Polly.
I was just going back and say, oh, I love to see those smiles. They bring
Mm.
energy to me as well.
Yeah. And even highlighting what you said, it's a way of being. I think earlier someone in the chat put exchange is a lifestyle. It's more than just the approach and how we do things. It's really how are we integrating and living into this approach in our everyday lives. So I appreciate that point as well. Denee, I'm going to come to you with a similar question. Where have you applied exchange? Any specific clients, communities, or environments? And if you want to share a specific example of a result or outcome that you achieved using the approach that was surprising or revealing to you about what's possible.
Thanks, Stephanie. I work primarily with physicians and healthcare providers, healthcare leaders, and I've had the opportunity to incorporate exchange frameworks with my work with these individuals across a variety of settings. So I've used it in local in-person monthly meetings of the Women in Medicine community for the Columbus Medical Association where I live. I've used it in an online community of women physician leaders across the United States. I've used it in a bi-monthly 3-day seminar series I lead with 2 other faculty on interpersonal communication and conflict management training for physicians and other healthcare providers. And I've also used it in a strategic healthcare leadership course that I lead at Johns Hopkins University. And I've just been really pleased with how simple it's been to implement and how beautifully it works across really a wide range of programs and settings. And one specific example I would share is the 3-day seminar series that I mentioned for interpersonal communication and conflict management. The seminar used to be quite passive. It was heavily faculty-led, content-heavy. The interactive component was really limited to kind of soliciting discussion or comments from the whole group. And as you can imagine, in groups, a lot of times it's 2 or 3 participants who tended to dominate those conversations. And the people who were less vocal just kind of disengaged and really were frustrated. And we knew that based on faculty observation, but also based on course evaluations. And so, ironically, we teach about the importance of creating psychological safety in healthcare teams in the seminar. And yet we weren't creating psychological safety for our participants in the program. So for this seminar, we use the session lab agenda to, plan tight, make sure we prioritized the time for the small group breakouts, added in more of those breakouts, and cut back on the passive content. And it was, the outcomes were overwhelmingly positive, improved engagement, which was witnessed by the faculty during the session. The post-course evaluations, again, the participants were very positive. They talked about giving them a chance to better absorb the material and to contribute more effectively. It allowed more time for hands-on training and active learning. And, some of them even stated they would have liked to see even more of the time in the small groups. So increase the high value time, reduce the low value time. It actually included more breaks for brain and body breaks, and cut an hour off the training day. And the comments and the outcomes were phenomenal. So.
Wow, that's so powerful, Denee. Just some points you made of you came into this space and there was voices that were dominating and it was a lot of passive content sharing. And the topic was how do we create psychological safety? So I find that it's beautiful that you came in, you trusted the process, and with some slight shifts and even the ability to cut back from an hour, reduce the content like we emphasized earlier today. That was a question, right? How do I do it when I have so much content? And the feedback of, I wish there was even more time in breakout rooms. By the way, that's feedback you're going to get quite often when you start applying the exchange approach is, I wish I could have more time in our groups. So it's such a beautiful showing of what is possible even before stepping into this space that maybe is a little more cold, and the warmth that I'm hearing you share about that's possible on the other side when you're applying it. I also want to emphasize you've been using it both in person and online. So that's something that I think is just important for us to note, that I know we're online in this training right now, but that these same choreographies and question design, you'll get similar results when you're in person. So thank you, Denee, for highlighting that. All right, I'm going to bring Poli back up, and I'm going to invite us now, Poli. I have a slide here that I'm going to bring up in a moment for you to just walk us through the specific story that shares an example of how you've applied the exchange approach using our questions and choreographies, and anything you want to share that you saw happen as a result of the activity that you shared. I'm going to bring this up on my screen here for you to walk us through.
So, as I said before, the ones I have been serving the most are my students and my folks at church. And it was so interesting because I'm like, I have to put into practice what I have been learning here. I talked to the rector, and I got the opportunity to do one training, a second training, and then through the season of Advent, end of last year, she was like, would you mind sharing the homily time with me? I was like, no, that's okay, let's do it. And I had some parts of it in the beginning, like the very first one, bring in them to talking about hope. So the two of us, I designed a question, exchanged ideas with her because she also knows like who the congregation is, and we came with a past question with a story of wisdom. When have I overcome a moment where I felt depleted by holding on to hope? By doing that activity with the congregation, you know that churches usually have pews, and we cannot break the pews to have people connect. But if you could, Stephanie, show the, yes, thank you. Look what happened when they got to the point where they could talk to one another. It was so nice and so amazing to see the energy flow at the church in a different level. Like people really connecting and exchanging what they had in their hearts to one another, and bringing them in to have their voices in. It was just like the ladies were, I want to say that I am shy, but I wanted to talk to say it was a great experience. I wanted more time with the one I was exchanging my story or listening to a story. So it was just like precious because of us having a good energy coming. The two next Sundays, the rector, she asked me if I could lead the whole 20 minutes of a homily with a question that would bring people to connect at a deeper, much deeper way. That's when we came up, because of talking about joy. Sorry, joy was the last one, about peace. What change do you most want to support? Which is a question we explored today. So I didn't make any like tricks to the question. I just really brought it in, and it was like around you, around the community, and in our world. It was just fantastic, the experience. So more people like bringing in their voices and sharing. And then for the following Sunday, we had also another past story of wisdom. When has my own story of joy helped me walk through? So like the wisdom was there with them, and they made this season of Advent for church really, really more powerful. And some of them at the end of those 3 Sundays, I wasn't there at the last Sunday of Advent, they were like, we cannot just have this at this very moment. We needed to have more of these connections. I could feel the energy. They telling me I could feel the energy and how there's so much we can learn from one another. And that was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It was just 20 minutes, each some 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, but powerful. And they really brought out something magical to the moment. Places that we sometimes don't even think of using, but where we should be using the most and where we really connect.
Polly, this is incredible. Thank you so much for highlighting this. I'm just gonna kind of speak to what you spoke to already. So this is an example of a connect choreography, which all of you got to experience today, correct? And what Polly did is in 20 minutes. So I know when I first came through Oaks, he was like, how am I ever gonna do 3 whole days of this, right? Like you immediately just start to compare to what your experience. But Polly, you in 20 minutes started off with just this first session. And I love that you said from there, she was like, can you come back and do more of this? Because you got to witness the engagement and what's possible. So you came back for 2 additional times. And I just want to show, again, I know you highlighted this. You didn't even change the question. You used exactly what was taught. What change do you most want to support? It's another great point because many of us, as we're learning the questions, I know I had a tendency, how do I get really creative and customize this question and make it my own? And sometimes simplicity is key. Just use what's in front of you, apply it, and trust the process that it's going to create those results. So again, you had about 45 to 50 people. This was in person. These are 20-minute sessions that you hosted, 3 different sessions for these. And as we can see, the agenda, something that we're going to be talking about probably tomorrow or afterwards is going to be all about enrollment. So you opened with enrollment and we went into the connect choreography where you asked that question. As we saw in here, they, turned around and had conversation. How powerful is that already? Even just in this space that many would say maybe isn't the best space to create those connections, you were still able to utilize, the choreography to create that environment for them. So they had the conversation and then they came back out and shared. And then as you put right here, you closed with their voices. This is such a beautiful example many of us can be inspired by for in 20 minutes how you can step into an existing agenda, an existing experience, and create such transformative change. Polly, thank you for your wisdom. All right, next up, I'm going to bring up Denee, who's going to walk us through her example. Same thing, Denee, I'm going to invite you to share, and I'll bring it up in a moment. Anything you'd like to share around the specific example, and then how you applied the exchange approach using our questions and choreographies, and anything you want to share about what you experienced as a result of the activity. And here is your slide.
Thank you. So this is actually the very first event that I applied the exchange technique. And this was back in September. This was with my group, my in-person group of local women physicians. We tend to draw about 30 women each month. And this was our first get together after the summer break. And, basically we had it at a local restaurant. It's a very social event. It's really about just creating community and belonging. And so we had the opportunity to gather and network. And then I kicked off the program portion, I guess, by reminding the group of the purpose of the Women in Medicine community. And that is to foster leadership, mentorship, and career development, to improve harmony with work-life balance, to address burnout and provide tools to improve resilience. And really, again, connected them to the importance of community and belonging in medicine. I mean, medicine is a tough place to be in, these days. So I posed a purpose question, and I used a connect choreography purpose question, and I asked them to consider why it was important that they were here today at the event, and why it's important for you, for those who your work serves, whether it's patients, children, coworkers, students, organizations, anyone that your work serves, and potentially even for the future of medicine. And that may sound a little bit hyperbolic, but medicine is kind of broken these days. Healthcare in the United States is in a rough place. And, personally, I believe that women physicians are the ones who are going to change that. But that's another topic for another day. So we posed the question, gave them a chance to reflect on it for a few minutes. and broke them into groups of 3 and gave them a chance to share and reflect back to each other what they heard. And I almost couldn't get them back together because there was so much chatter and so much joy and just so much connection. It was really heartwarming to watch. But when we were able to reconvene the whole group and invited voices to share, and there were so many people that wanted to stand up and share. And again, it was just lovely to watch. What I saw was they loved the activity. They made quick, deeper connections. I mean, many of these women didn't really know each other. These are people from age of 30 to 60 plus. They work in different institutions and practices across the city. They, are in different specialties. And so again, most of these people didn't know each other or know each other well. And they just connected, bonded quickly and deeply, and vulnerable sharing, really reconnecting them to purpose, why they went into medicine to begin with. And the reason that's important is because, again, physicians are really having a difficult time right now, right? Burnout's rampant, staffing shortages, supply shortages. They're having a hard time taking care of their patients. And we need to keep good doctors practicing medicine. And just little things like this can really make a difference. And again, it was just very heartwarming to watch this. And at the end of the event, the executive director of the Columbus Medical Academy came up to me with wide eyes and just said, "This is the best event we've ever hosted."
Denee, I can feel your heart just as you're sharing too, and you've got a lot of love coming through the chat. I just want to show if you want to speak to any of these photos too. So again, like the environment you guys were at, it looks like a restaurant environment with networking, a little bit of wine and appetizers beforehand, but just look at the engagement as you were mentioning, right? It was hard to bring them back together, which I find that common when we're in person. And just the smiles and the connection that's possible. I think you mentioned too, just like what's normally an isolated space for these medical doctors. So for them to come together and to share and connect, that's pretty profound. I want to highlight a couple.
We literally had to buy a gong to use for our meetings from then on, because, at least that was something that I didn't have to scream to get them to, pay attention, because it's time to move on. So now we have a gong that we ring when it's time to reconvene.
That's a great pro tip. I love that. John just has us do animal sounds randomly just to get people's attention. Sometimes that seems to work. So in your case, again, a connect choreography for everyone, and we used a purpose present question. Again, this is right from your workbook, but what I love, Denee, is that you customized it, right? So these are what we would consider thought joggers for you, for those your work serves, and I love that you included this final question for the future of medicine, because that really does not only, as you said, reconnect them to their own purpose, but creates a collective vision for what is possible when we gather and come together. And in your case, we might remember from Poli's example, her whole thing was 20 minutes and the connect choreography was about 10, but for you it's 25 minutes. And even after 25 minutes, again, I know sometimes there's this thought of we tend to kind of crowd our agendas with a lot of just back-to-back agenda items, but the ability to have more space for them to connect around these questions, and this was just groups of 3, and still they wanted to stay in connection, and that, bringing them back out. So just some things to be mindful of as we're coming together, but how powerful vulnerable shares, reconnecting them to purpose, even just this fact that you pause to open with purpose, I think is really exciting. And I know you had some shares in here, how bringing this work to more environments too, where healing is so important and necessary and needed, and that it could be as simple as one question. And again, question, conversation, voices, just following our 3-step approach. Denee, thank you so much for sharing this powerful example of what's possible. All right, what I'm going to do now is we are pretty close to time right now, so I'm going to invite you, as I'm going to hand it to John, Denee, and Poli. Thank you both so much for your wisdom, your insights. I am going to invite you into the chat. Anything you want to appreciate, please feel free to put those in the chat so that Denee and Poli can just enjoy your wisdom and your voices. Poli and Denee, thank you so much for being with us. You guys will all get a copy of these slides again in that end of day recap, and in the chat I invite you.